Hello, I am Boneycat. I am Dracul Draconicus, and I play this here charr Boneycat in Guild Wars 2.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another MMO Anthropology interview. We are here in Guild Wars 2, and I've got my friend Boneycat, also known as Dracul Draconicus, playing a Necromancer. And he brought me to this interestingly shiny place, which happens to have a strawberry garden right down here. So, everybody, welcome, Dracul. Thank you so much for spending the time with me.
And thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And so let's start off with, so why did you choose Guild Wars 2 for this interview?
Because I really just got into the game, and so far I'm really loving it.
And so, could you tell us a little bit about the area that you chose? It's very idyllic, I should point out, and the little charr here keeps humming.
Well, she's picking her strawberries. But I chose this place because, well, charlands and everything. Very Arizona-like, and, well, beating stuff up, and just a fun place to really be. It's also one of the first places I so-called cut my teeth on, basically.
So, like, this location is part of one of the areas that you were first in. One of the things I should mention to people watching is that this location that we're in is actually kind of secluded. You have to go through a little bit of a jumping puzzle in order to get here. It's not immediately obvious. So, how did you find this place? I think that's probably a good first thing to start with.
To tell the truth, honestly, I had no idea it was here either until a friend of mine, Draconic, told me to follow him, and he led me to this place.
Well, that's brilliant.
Yeah, so a little hidden feature, which I find very cute and charming.
So, do you have any experience with other MMOs?
A little, but not as much as most people. I actually first started on City of Heroes, and then from there I moved on to a little bit of WoW until I found Guild Wars 2, and, well, not much, but I'm enjoying my time with MMOs in general. Cool.
Can you tell me how Guild Wars 2 compares to those other MMOs? Like, what's compelling about it?
I say I have no problem with City of Heroes or WoW, but I found Guild Wars 2's story, especially for the charr, a little bit more appealing to me. Like the war going on, the other factions joining in, and just basically charr in general are the ones in my mind that draw me to the game. I want to find out more about these creatures that inhabit Tyria.
And so charr are basically a race who are kind of cat-like, but they also have horns, and they got like 4 ears. Can't see it very well on Boneycat's character because he's wearing this sort of deer skull. Or, well, it's got 4 horns.
I hide my face.
You are bony, so I can see that.
Yes.
So, what do you do on a regular day when you're playing Guild Wars 2?
I usually farm a little bit up until Tequatl comes along, and then I do a little bit of world bosses, Tequatl, Mega Destroyer. The Maw is also very popular.
So what is, like in Guild Wars 2, give me a short description of what a world boss is. In fact, why don't you just tell us what Tequatl is? Because, I mean, you've got one, or you got a tiny little one here.
Well, it's exactly like this little guy right here, only about maybe 500 times bigger. Destroys lighthouses, and it takes at least, I want to say, maybe 300 people to take them down.
Yeah, it takes, I've
quite
seen
a bit.
Yeah. You say you do that often. Do you find that particularly interesting? Why do you go fight Tequatl?
Well, personally, I do it for the loot, because I'm always looking to change up my gear, find out what kind of stuff drops, and hopefully get an Ascended chest.
Oh, right. Well, why are you looking... What's an Ascended chest, and why are you looking for one?
I believe it's an upgraded piece of weaponry you can get to use as a precursor, maybe? And then you could get the biggest, baddest weapon in the game that your class can use, and it does little special... effects for you. We'll leave an ice trail or flowers, or people who have a legendary can do these kind of things if they take their time with the Mystic Toilet.
Oh yeah, you're describing legendary weapons, which are somewhat used to be more or less unique weapons that are pretty.
I'm still figuring it out in my own head. What leads to what?
Right.
So
that's
I may
fine.
be wrong. So.
No, you're right. Precursors are used to make legendaries in Guild Wars 2, as far as I'm aware. So you're mostly doing Tequatl because you want interesting stuff to drop from it. Do you happen to be wearing any interesting equipment that you want to talk about, or anything storied, like that you received in an interesting fashion?
Most of my stuff came from the Silver Wastes, another high-level area that people do trains on. Nothing too super awesome great, but it gets me through the bosses and, well, strong enough to do the bosses so I could get better loot.
Right.
But nothing too interesting other than the Witch Doctor gear I have on.
Mm-hmm. So how did you come across that, and why did you? I mean, like, how did you build up the look of your character? Did you spend time to think about it, or did it just come together from bits and pieces from across the world?
It mostly came together from bits and pieces of loot that dropped up until I decided to, hey, let's pay the heart vendors a visit. And as soon as I saw some of the Witch Doctor gear, I instantly fell in love. And hey, it's Necromancer looking.
It is. It is, in fact, Necromancer looking. Something else I can't not notice is that you do have this character who looks all grim, is decked out for war with a skull face and kind of a toothy grin, and your backpack is adorable.
It is. It was my first Black Lion chest it dropped for me. And I fell in love.
Yeah, to describe to anyone who is watching, a Black Lion chest is essentially kind of, if you're familiar with lockboxes and MMOs, they are a grab bag of potential loot that you pay a small amount of money, about $1.25 around, I think, for access to it, to open it up, and then you get 3 things at random. And sometimes it's cute stuff like this. I thought it was amusing that you've got this grim, hulking character, and then there's just this kind of adorable high school backpack going on.
Well, that's basically the look I was going for. Big, serious charr. Cute little backpack.
Yep, no kidding. So, a little bit of a more serious question. How do you use MMOs as entertainment, but differently than reading a book, watching TV, or a movie?
I'd say it's more of a relaxing tool for me. You know, winding down from the day, grinding a bit, earning money so I could get, well, more toys. Mm-hmm. And, you know, a social experience. You know, I have some friends here who play as well, so I get a chance to talk to them, hit up a world boss if so happens to come along, and, you know, just see what I can do for the day. Mm-hmm.
So I'm also really curious about your socialization in Guild Wars 2. Like, for example, do you have a guild?
Yes.
And who are they, or if you're willing to mention?
They would be the Tail Swishers, a local, or not a local, cross-world furry guild.
Mm-hmm. And how did you find them?
I was actually running around the Winter's Day event, and I saw somebody with a tag, so I mentioned them, or I whispered them, talked to them for a little bit, and was hoping for an invite, and then I got one and, you know, met some really nice people through them.
So, I noticed that you mentioned that the guild is a furry guild, and furries are a subculture outside of gaming.
Yes.
So did you seek them out because you found an individual who was part of it, and you also belong to a furry subculture?
Yes.
And this is particularly compelling for joining a guild of like-minded people?
Yes.
Do you find that changes your experience in the game from before you had a guild of furries to deal with?
Not really. It's about the same. Treat them just like everyday people.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
So what has I know? Did you spend a period of time in the game without a guild, or was it the first?
Oh yeah, yeah. I'd say my first 2 months I went without a guild. Not that I really think I missed much, other than the guild bounties and rushes, but it's still the same experience.
So you're basically saying that the experience was pretty much the same. You just missed out on the guild specific community.
The socialization,
events.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So One of the things I'm really curious about is that I know that you're playing a charr and a necromancer in Guild Wars 2. Can you tell me a little bit about why you chose being a charr and what playing a necromancer is like in this game?
Well, I chose the charr because personally, humans in video games kind of bore me. The Asura look cute, don't get me wrong. I love the look of the Asura. But they didn't really appeal to me much either.
Right.
The Norn, didn't really, once again, appeal to me until, I just said, hey, there's cat people. So why not cat people?
Right.
And as far as the Necromancer goes, the Necromancer comes from a deep love of Diablo 2.
Oh, okay.
Been playing, Diablo 2 since it came out 2001. So I was like, hey, why not give it a shot? I've always loved Necromancers. I've always loved making the field full of suck. So I went with it, and I absolutely adore it.
So what type of powers does your Necromancer come with?
Well, it switches from axe to dagger, but we got some lifesteal. We got some hold in place. We got some sirens, and we got some, my favorite, bees. Everybody's favorite, right?
Yes. And from what I hear, you run faster after you've done that. So if you're covered in bees, you have a tendency to move more quickly.
You move quicker, and you cripple enemies around you.
That's brilliant.
Yes.
All right, so I have a short amount of time left in this interview, and generally the capstone to every interview that I give everyone is, do you have a favorite experience or a most memorable experience from an MMO?
Oh, that would be a cross between the first time I fought Tequatl or when little baby Tequatl here dropped for me.
Well, sure, let's go with both. Do you have a story about the first time that you fought Tequatl?
The first time I died many, many times, but with some help from some friends of mine, I actually pulled through and figured out the different techniques and different things you had to do to take down bosses.
So, part of your experience with taking on Tequatl, which I understand is a very large group event that needs a bit of coordination, was working with other people who were friends of yours who gave you instruction
and, a guiding hand is like, hey, when this breaks, you need to defend battery A or B, etc., and then you go back into the field. It's a real fun experience, very involving.
And noting that you come in here with friends, how would you say, what is the community like, your interaction with other people that you don't immediately know? What's the temperature, would you say?
I'd say it's wonderful. I've heard it being explained as a giant party most of the time, and it is a giant party. Although you do get, from time to time, the toxic crowd, but the ignore button is there for a reason.
So you're saying that, well, there is, mostly the community is really, really good, but there's some bad people, but you're capable of controlling them with the mechanics given you in the game.
Yes.
That sounds pretty good, actually. So overall, you'd say your experience with Guild Wars 2 has been good?
Excellent. Yes.
And yeah, I hope to see more Tequatl with you sometime. Especially,
definitely.
I do like the mini Tequatl. In fact, I wouldn't mind if you told me a little bit about when that dropped and like what was the. What was was there anything special about the fight with Tequatl when it dropped, or what?
No, basically I went in there thinking, hey, it's going to be normal drops. You're going to get a mix of yellows and some scrolls of knowledge and blah, blah, blah. Apparently the RNG really, really loved me. And little Tequatl here dropped. Yeah, only an hour later, I go to the Silver Waste and another friend of mine dropped. And, yeah, it was a fun experience. Both very, very rare, but adorable all the same.
Oh, I recognize that. The Mordrum Thrasher. I've got one. Of course. I like it. All right. Well, that's as much time as I have for this interview. Thank you so much for coming along and talking to me about your experience here in Guild Wars 2.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And everybody else who's watching, thank you for watching. Good night and good dreams.
Do you play online games? Do you have Skype? Then we'd love to interview you on Massive Online Anthropology. Join the fascinating thousands who've spoken about their online gaming experience and be the envy of all your friends. Or at least get the MMO Anthropology Geek Merit Badge. Sorry, no t-shirt. See you then!